It's Impact with the Florida Star, the largest, oldest, and most read African-American newspaper in Northeast Florida and South Georgia. And now, here's the host, the publisher of the award-winning Florida Star, Clara McLaughlin.
This is OPO. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Impact. We got part 2 of the conversation we were having with attorney Chris Chestnut. You get to hear from the man himself. So y'all make sure y'all stay tuned. And because they go after brothers and sisters that are great black lawyers, we need more black lawyers. So also on the show, we have the grandson of Charles Hamilton Houston. He's Charles Hamilton Houston III. He is speaking at Howard University School of Law to some students that are going into law school for their first year. So if you're going into law school this year, or you know somebody that's going into law school, tell them to come on and log on to the show. We got a great show lined up. This is OPO Seconia. Make sure you continue to pick up a copy of the Florida Star newspaper. Y'all stay tuned right here on Impact.
That first year, I was lost. I was flailing wildly, trying to get traction, trying to understand not just the finer points of the debate, of the discussion, of what they were talking about in these cases. I was just trying to understand them and figure out who won, right? Who did the judge rule in favor of? Because this just isn't clear to me. And so I was woefully underprepared. Not because I wasn't smart, not because I wasn't reasonably perceptive. I just didn't get it. It was all just, everything was a jumble for me. And I'm telling you this, I mean, it all worked out fine, trust me. But I'm telling you this because I want you to have the skills that you need, the basic skill set that you need, so that on day one, when you walk in, on day one, you will have read the cases in a way that allows you to understand them, and start now, right? Go out and find some old cases online. There's sort of 10 standard cases that everybody studies everywhere across the country in the first year curriculum. Find some of those and make sure you can read them, right? All of us here, everybody here wants to go to law school. Understand what that means. Understand what you will be doing as a law student. I'm completely off on my notes. I'm going to sort of give you, as others have done, I'm going to give you sort of my 5 tips for not success, but things that will allow you to at least make good decisions. The first one I would say is know yourself. And by that I mean, ask yourself this question, and ask it fresh in your mind here today. Ask yourself if you really want to go to law school, right? Because we get in this rut, we get in this pattern of deciding that we're going to do something, because I did. We decide that we're going to do something, and then once it's in our mind, we don't really investigate it anymore. And so ask yourself today, do I really want to go to law school? And I hope the answer is yes, but if it's not, admit that at least to yourself. And then ask yourself why you want to go to law school, right? Is it because the job market's not great right now and you want to buy another 3 more years? Do you have something specific in mind? Do you just want the general knowledge and power that having a JD gives you? Ask yourself, there's no right answer, but ask yourself why. Number 2, know what you're getting into, right? You just heard from me the cautionary tale about somebody who didn't know what he was getting into. I didn't know what law school looked like. I didn't know what it meant to read cases. I didn't know how to brief a case. I didn't know the kind of psychological impact that was going to that was going to affect me, because my entire grade, my first semester, was based on one exam. That's a big deal, right? Because in every other schooling I've had, there was always quizzes and tests along the way, and I could sort of, start off strong and maintain or increase that. With law school, with the exams, you get one shot. Do not oversleep. Trust me, it's not good. So know what you're getting into. What does a semester look like? Know how to read in brief cases, right? Start early, start now. Let it become second nature to you so that when you walk in your first day, you can participate in the discussions about the finer points instead of trying to figure out what an appellant is, right? I mean, it's shocking to admit that now, to hear that, but that's actually the world that I lived in back then. And I say that despite, and you've heard about my family, you've heard that my grandfather was this amazing attorney, and he was. And I have the distinct advantage of coming from a family that, I'm not first or even second generation college. But I didn't have anybody to tell me specifically, because my grandfather died in 1950, well before I was born, when my father was a child. My father's not a lawyer. I didn't have anybody tell me, sit down and say, all right, son, these are the things you need to know for law school. I'd always been told, oh, work hard, education's important, you'll get there. Yeah, I worked hard, education is important. I got there, and I struggled. And I righted the ship, and I came back with a vengeance my second and third year. But so much better for you if you start off strong and stay that way. The LSAT. You have to do well. It's just that simple. You have to do well. It's what the law schools look at. It's what they care about. It's metrics. You have to do well. You have to do your absolute best. And the only way you can do that, guys, the only way that you can maximize your potential in the LSAT, you've got to take a course. You have to. People will tell you, oh, I studied on my own. Great. Good for you. It's a fool's errand, frankly. It's a fool's errand to do that. I have no particular loyalty or affinity to any of the dozens of companies that offer them. Find the one that works best for you. Take it. Costs a lot of money. If you can't afford that, if you can't afford to take the class, maybe you're not ready, right? This is the honesty portion of the program. If you can't afford the LSAT course right now, you should wait, in my opinion. You should wait until you can so that you can take that test fully prepared. See, understand that the LSAT is sort of the great divider. It separates, it's the difference between getting into your school of choice and not getting in. But it's also the difference between just getting in and getting an academic scholarship, because you have the strong GPA and the LSAT, right? So take the course. Choose your school wisely. This is number 4. Choose your school wisely. There are 4 factors to think about, as I see it: academics, cost, admission, and sort of post-law school opportunities. In other words, is it a good school for you? Can you afford it? Are you going to get in? Once you're done, what are you going to do? What are your options going to be? So choose your school wisely. Pick the one that's best for you. Sounds basic, I know, but think about it. Number 5, network. Find a mentor or 2 or 5. Have somebody in your corner who cares about you, who cares about your development as a lawyer, who can say to you, yeah, I know it's hard, I know it sucks, but you're going to be fine. And by the way, here's some tips. Here's how to handle X, Y, and Z. Yoga and tater tots. I love that story. It's fantastic. But find somebody who can guide you along the path. One of the speakers, I think it was Tina, who said that every job she's ever gotten has been as a result of people she knows. Me too. Every single one. I mean, every single one. And it happens all the time. It happens in professional settings. It happens in social settings. You have to always know the person you're talking to could be somebody very important in the profession, or could know somebody very, very important in the profession, or you'll need them down the road one day. As far as mentors go, right? How many of you in here have a mentor? Raise your hand. A little more than half. It's not enough. You need one. You need more than one, right? And so Because you're here today, it tells me that you're the kind of person that sees an opportunity and you seize it and you go after it and you grab it. This is an opportunity that you cannot pass up. The chance to interface with folks on this panel, the other lawyers you'll meet during this conference, you absolutely must take full advantage of it. Ask for cards, follow up with people, look them up on LinkedIn, do whatever you have to do. Reach out to folks. Understand everybody's busy, but those of us who think it's important, and I think everybody on this panel falls into that category, those of us who think it's important, we'll find the time. We'll figure it out. If you email me or message me, I promise I'll respond. It's important because I got where I am. I've had some measure of professional success because people helped me, and so that's why I'm here. I'm here because I am paying back Judge Keith by helping you, and I owe him a debt, which means that I got to be here for you, and I'm happy to do it. That's all I have for the aspiring law students, but let me just remind my fellow lawyers in the room of some words, and you know where I'm going with this later. I mentioned the phrase social engineer. My grandfather said that a lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. That's harsh, but it's true. What is a social engineer? I'm glad you asked. A social engineer is a highly skilled, perceptive, sensitive lawyer who understands the Constitution of the United States and knows how to explore its uses in the solving of the problems of local communities. A social engineer is somebody who will consistently and competently interpret the rights, grievances, and aspirations of our people. And that means that we have to help you. We understand, we know that we didn't achieve what we achieved on our own, right? Not entirely. All of us know that we walked down a path that had been blazed for us by others. We had opportunities and doors open for us that weren't available to our ancestors. They created chances for us. They created the path down which we could walk. My job is to widen that path so that you can run down it, so that you can meet and exceed your goal. And when you do, not if, but when you do, you will have a duty to be a social engineer. You will have a duty to reach back and help the future generations.
Do you know which media solely addresses issues of concern for African Americans? The Florida Star. Do you know which media carries local, state, national, and international news regarding African Americans? The Florida Star. Do you know the only media that carries a special section for our youth at home and the schedule for 3 black television networks? Now you know the Florida Star. Northeast Florida's largest, oldest, and most read African American newspaper, serving since 1951 in more than 200 locations. The Florida Star. News you can use. News you can trust. The people's choice. Striving to make a difference. Subscribe today. Call 766-8834. That's 766-8834. Pick up the Florida Star at over 200 locations. Or to have it delivered, call 766-8834. The Florida Star. Speaking truth to power.
Juneteenth, or June 19th, 1865, is the date that the United States government communicated freedom to the remaining human beings that were enslaved. More than 2 years earlier, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on September 22nd, 1862, notifying the states in rebellion against the Union that if they did not cease their rebellion and return to the Union by January 1st, 1863, their slaves would be forever free. Abraham Lincoln read the proclamation, which stated in part that on the first day of January AD 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free, and the executive government government of the United States, including the military and naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons and will do no act or acts to repress such persons or any of them in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom. And I forward declare and make known that such persons of suitable condition will be received into the armed service of the United States to garrison forts, positions, stations, and other places, and to man vessels all sorts in said service. And upon this act, sincerely believed to be an act of justice warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity, I invoke the considerate judgment of mankind and the gracious favor of Almighty God. Those states in rebellion ignored the proclamation. In addition, the proclamation did not apply to slaveholding states that did not rebel against the Union. This meant that hundreds of thousands of blacks were not covered by the proclamation. A Union-won Civil War and Constitutional Amendment would formally outlaw slavery. However, during the war, the state of Texas experienced an influx of slave owners who knew that the state was not overrun by Union troops. These slave masters, along with very little Union victories in Texas, prevented news from getting to blacks. Therefore, the enslaved human beings there did not know about the Emancipation Proclamation, which outlawed slavery in rebellious Texas. After the surrender of General Robert Lee on April of 1865, General Gordon Granger, along with over 2,000 troops, headed to Texas to communicate the news of victory and freedom to the enslaved blacks there. Granger arrived on June 18, 1865. The next day, standing on the balcony of Galveston's Ashton Villa, he read General Order Number 3, formally enforcing the Emancipation Proclamation. General Order Number 3 reads as follows. The people are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them become that between employer and hired labor. The freed are advised to remain at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness either there or elsewhere. With this general order enforcement, over 250,000 remaining blacks in Texas were freed. Juneteenth, the celebration of emancipation, was born. The original festivals included rodeos, fishing, and baseball. Certain foods became synonymous with Juneteenth celebrations, such as barbecue, ice cream, and strawberry soda. Also, there are accounts of blacks tearing off their ragged garments and throwing them into the rivers. They then adorned themselves with clothes of their former slave masters. Today, Juneteenth is celebrated in more than 200 cities around the United States. On January 1st, 1980, Juneteenth became an official state holiday in Texas, granted it full state holiday status, a day when government employees have the day off. The National Juneteenth Observance Foundation and the National Juneteenth Christian Leadership Council are circulating a petition for Barack Obama, a supporter of Juneteenth, while the U.S. Senator to issue a presidential proclamation establishing 19th of June as National Juneteenth Independence Day in America. Everyone in this country should celebrate the commemoration of this country ridding itself of slavery. Part 2 of the conversation we were having with Attorney Chris Chestnut.
There is no help for us. Because the lawyers who are competing against me are regulating me. If I appeal their decision, I'm going to their friends on the Supreme Court. So I'm still before the same shooting squad, firing squad. So there has to be some address on that. Probably needs to be brought up under Division of Business or Professional Regulation or something like that. But there has to be some check and balance, because right now there is.
So when the bar violates its own rules, as it seems when you read about your situation, what do you how do you get redress, or is it that judges are part of this situation and there's just nothing that can be done?
basically. I mean, it's I'm appealing now, and I'm asking for help in other courts. But the problem is, no, there is no real check and balance. I mean, I'm applying to the Supreme Court and appealing to them, but they're not required to take the case, so they could just deny cert, and that's that.
So
So I'm asking for help.
is there something that maybe the legislature should create, something that becomes a when there's looks like or there's an appearance of the bar violating in its own rules, and it's not taken by, say, a judge? Is there some type of panel that you believe the legislature can create that will deal with it, or the executive branch can create?
Yes, I think there could be some oversight committees, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
So on the federal level, there's congressional oversight committees.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps the state legislature could consider that. But there needs to be something, or an agency that can come in and regulate. So at least now you got a different body hearing appeals of mismanagement or rule violations. Because they literally did not follow their own rules. They would prosecute me under rules that didn't even exist, or the wrong law. They prosecute me. But they could do that because there's nobody watching them.
But I'm thinking that I've never even thought about this before. But that seems like that can be a great idea for some agency or something that's created to be able an oversight, or another place you can have something addressed outside that legal community.
Yeah. It's how our government is built. That's why there are three branches. You got the executive, you got the legislative, and then you got the judiciary, right? So everybody kind of watches somebody else. So the governor can do certain things that the legislature can't do. Or you can't move along on certain things because you got to have approved by the legislature. And you can't move along without consequence, because if he does something, then the judges are going to check him on the judiciary.
Man.
But nobody's really checking on these judges right now in terms of regulating, or the judiciary in terms of regulating lawyers. So for instance, they were bringing judges from Lake County, from the Orlando area, to oversee my cases that were in Jacksonville, and they brought the judge from Lake County.
Wow. This is Opie.
It's
I'm
not
speaking.
a coincidence. You see what I'm saying?
Right. This is Opie. I'm speaking to Attorney Chris Chestnut. I think because what lawyers do are so important, and their careers become so big, and there's so many moving parts in it, I don't think it's too much to ask for some kind of agency outside the legal agency, particularly where you have judges and lawyers are involved, because they are so important in every community, right?
Especially in our community, man. Because listen, let me tell you, man, I had to end up defending myself. And I really didn't appreciate, I knew I was always doing work in the community. I didn't realize how much inequity there was within the law. And so I'm telling you, if this is happening to me as a lawyer, I can only imagine what's happening every day in courtrooms to our children.
Right.
And so, and it's a trickle-down effect, because what happens then is the black lawyers begin to realize that there are unwritten rules. And so sometimes there'll be defenses or legal strategies, or you can become more aggressive. Now, if I'm aggressive as a lawyer, I get a bar complaint. If a white lawyer is aggressive, they call him great. So there's a difference, right? If I zealously advocate for my client, then all of a sudden they're asking me for a psychological evaluation for being too aggressive.
I've seen that before.
If a white lawyer does that, yeah, exactly. They don't get it. And so then lawyers sometimes, put it this way, I had lawyers who I had paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to, who were telling me to plead to something that I didn't do.
Right.
And then I started doing the research myself, and I say, hold on, man, what about this legal theory? What about this defense? What about this? Oh, that's too aggressive. Too aggressive? Now they're about to get me to plead to disbarment. They want me to just duck out and go. And I'm saying, you haven't raised this, this, and this, and I paid you all this money. I fired a lawyer, raised it myself, they end up throwing off the judge. The judge gets disqualified.
Wow.
So I offer that as an example of the type of lawyering that's out there. And also that until the community begins to stand up, especially for our lawyers, we got to defend our leaders and our lawyers. The lawyers cannot be as aggressive or call into question the things that need to be called into question, because they'll pick us off one by one.
Right.
So I was an easy target. but I also send a message to every other black lawyer in the state of Florida. And frankly, I had a national presence, so it's black lawyers, period. Run, but not too fast. Speak, but not too loud. Aim, but not too high. Stay in your place. Well, this is Jim Crow all over.
Right.
So we've gotten our community we've got to begin to engage in protecting our leaders and lawyers as well.
I think you're right, man. There was a lawyer by the name of Chokwe Lumumba. He was Tupac's lawyer. He was one of Tupac's lawyers.
Okay.
He was very, very aggressive in the court. He got into it with judges all the time because, see, sometimes judges believe that they can talk to you any kind of way, a grown man or a grown woman any kind of way, and somehow that's okay because they somehow believe that they're God inside the courtroom. Or they can just kind of say and sometimes make up things as they go along, depends on how they feel and what their personalities are. And they would run, this guy, Chokwe, would run into these guys that would tell them sit down and do these things, and that wasn't the type of attorney that's going to just sit down and shut up. And so he ultimately got in trouble, then he got suspended, then he got disbarred, but he turned around and he ran for office, and he became the mayor, the first black mayor, I believe, of Jackson, Mississippi. And then he died a few years after that. But that was Chokwe Lumumba. He had problems inside the courtroom because they believed that a black lawyer should not be a zealous defender. He can't jump up on tables. He can't do all the beautiful theatrics that the white boy can do. But there are people like yourself and guys like Chokwe. They say no. I don't care what the situation is. I'm going to be who I am. And you're right. A lot of black lawyers kind of see what's going on, and hey, I want to protect my 2.5 kids and the big house and the nice cars, and that's a comfortable life. And a lot of times, people, they're the first to go to college, the first to have money, But you're a lineage of people that have done successful.
Yeah, and that's what they dangle in front of us, and that's how they cap us. They just say. They threaten your livelihood, and so I can't blame individual lawyers, but as a community, we've got to figure out how to do it because listen, we get in trouble, even if it's just not for theatrics, for raising legal defenses. Man, they were literally legal defenses that I had to raise that I'd have to do in writing, in a pleading, because if I said it one-on-one to the judge, they couldn't receive it because just that innate inherent racism, right? And it's almost like, boy, you can't talk to me like that. Or if I go to court and make the argument, then all of a sudden it's not on the record. The court reporter doesn't show up, et cetera, something happened. So there were things that we had to literally file in the record to make sure that it's in the record and then confirm that it shows up on the filing. Sometimes your filing won't show up. There are a lot of issues in the court system. And I've been doing some research, and man, this goes back to Reconstruction, to the end of slavery.
Right.
Especially in the South. And the tie-in was that the South didn't want to go along with the end of slavery into equal protection for black folks, basically equal rights. And so they were using the criminal justice system and the law to do it.
Right.
And that's how they enacted and kept Jim Crow. And that's what we're fighting against still today, unfortunately.
So
the more I do the research, the more I see the parallels.
So what do you do now? You're disbarred. You don't have that business. Of course, you can go back into the mortician business, but that might be some bigger things because of the way you were treated. And you're an activist, and you're already a community service person. Is it your feeling now? Hey, I got to do bigger things in another way, or what's next for you?
Yeah, the train definitely doesn't stop, and so now I'm definitely considering what I'm doing full time moving forward. But definitely still want to be involved in the community. I've always had other businesses going on the side as well. So, you always got to be diversified.
Right.
I would say my first passion is the mortuary, just because I've been working at the funeral home since I was about 5 years old.
Right.
So that's always there. But I think I'm going to continue to serve the community. And also, though, I'm going to take advantage of this time to just pause for a minute and listen to God.
Right.
Let God lead me in my next steps. But I know it'll be something involving the community because that's my fuel. That's what the money is a byproduct. which is why we always like to reinvest in the community. You know, it's not about just stacking money in a closet somewhere. It's, let's all win together.
That's right, man. Before I let you go, I'm just going to admit it, man. As we went out there, and I would always see your name, and you would always do this positive stuff, man. And I had wondered, because you're a bold guy, when are they going to go after this brother? Because you're sharp, man, and we need so many people like you. But please don't go away, because if you go away, we're gonna come find you, because you're a super talent, and I'm telling you, all the places that I've seen and all the people that have that respect for you, man, you're a major asset to this community.
Hey man, I'm fortunate. We love Jacksonville, man. I'm just grateful to be here, bro.
All right, Mr. Chestnut, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Got to get out of here. This is Opio. I will see you next time on Impact.